Markets Now is brought to you by Durastack Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastack technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
Grains ending mixed on Tuesday with the cattle futures in negative territory. Naomi Blohm is joining us with analysis. We did get a little pop first off in soybeans and soybean oil on Tuesday, Naomi. Was the market maybe hopeful that we were going to get some sort of an announcement on biofuels from the president?
Well, I think you're correct on your assessment. The soybean market, the bean oil market, really waiting to see what President Trump's announcement may be in Iowa on Tuesday afternoon. Of course, his conversation coming in once the markets were closed, but there was hope that maybe there'll be some positive news for farmers in regards to demand for the biofuels, just to let the Midwest know that they haven't been forgotten, that they are still top of mind, and that maybe we're going to get that biofuels announcement on blending rates in the short term here. The administration had maybe talked like the EPA was going to be coming out with that news in early March, which would really be helpful to help with demand. Of course, not just only for soybeans, but for corn, any kind of positive news that we could get to increase demand to help prop up prices is definitely going to be welcomed.
Right, because even though China has supposedly bought the 12 million metric tons of soybeans they agreed to purchase, they might be out of the market now for a while, right?
Yeah, that is what we're starting to think. So they did buy the 12 million metric tons as promised. Now it's 2026. And so they're supposed to be buying 25 million metric tons this year. But there is a seasonal buying pattern to when China buys from the United States. And a lot of times during February and March, they start to scale back on purchases of US soybeans because the South American crop is ready to be harvested and ready to get exported to the world. China usually shows up again with gusto in August as our crop is getting ready to be harvested. So we're kind of expecting some quieter times from China in terms of soybean exports. It would be a wonderful surprise if they came in and were more aggressive here right on. But I mean, the reality is that the Brazil crop is cheaper than ours right now just because they're getting closer to harvest.
Yeah, no doubt. How optimistic are you about the 25 million metric tons as the next tranche that they're supposed to buy?
I'm a little skeptical just because it still is going to be a bargaining tool for China. I do feel that they will come in and buy 2 months worth of product from us because they do need that from us just to get their year-round needs when they need it. So I do feel like they will come in and buy. But if it's going to be that 25 million metric ton amount, I actually think that that would be really supportive to the market. I don't think that that's priced in. I feel like the USDA has cut back on how much export demand we've seen on these WASD reports. So if China comes in and buys the 25 million metric tons, I think that'll make the export demand number on WASD reports go higher. And that would also help them to support prices and bring that carryout number down.
Right. What's your sense of the South American crop right now in terms of whether we're going to continue to see Brazilian production estimates go up while Argentina soybean crop estimates go down?
Yeah, so I would say that with the Brazilian crop number, I don't know that we're going to see it become much bigger than the estimates that are out there. And there's a range of estimates, but the overall bottom line is that it's a big crop. With the recent dryness that we've seen in portions of Argentina, I don't feel like the weather there has been terrible to where that number is going to become smaller on their production side. But it is something to be mindful of going forward. And I mean, the bottom line is that South America is going to have enough sufficient production, and that's just going to keep a wet blanket over the market and probably be a reason why maybe our US prices struggle unless we can get some positive demand news on the biofuels.
Speaking of struggling, we can't seem to close above, say, the 200-day moving average here in the beans. And how difficult is it going to be to find a catalyst to get out of that range, do you think?
Yeah, we might be stuck here for a couple weeks. It could be maybe the next February WASDE report that gets us out of the range. It would have to be some fresh export demand news or something friendly on the biofuels front to get us to trade through that range. But I also feel like the market won't fall apart in the short term just because we have to have a better understanding of where our US acres are going to be for the spring And of course, we need to know for sure where our production is going to be this summer. So I'm looking for kind of a quieter market here in the short term. But anytime you see the market get up to some major resistance levels on these charts, that would be an opportunity to make some cash sales.
And the corn market also drifting a little bit today, but the last time you and I talked about corn, we said corn was stuck. Now we're still stuck, but just in a lower trading range, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So, as we all remember in November, December, early January, that corn market had been trading sideways for 2.5 months. And the longer a market trades sideways, the bigger the price breakout has a potential to be down the road. And the January WASD is the catalyst that make the market go down. So now we're in a new sideways trading range. Of course, it is at a lower value where for the March corn contract, 415 should be really fantastic support and resistance is up near 430 to 435. My best guess is that the market's going to trade in a sideways fashion at this new lower trading range, probably for another month, maybe 2 months until we get a better handle on biofuel demand and getting a better handle on South American weather, especially as it pertains to getting that second crop corn planted in Brazil. That is, again, 75% of their production. And what's interesting to note is that, with the USDA report, when you look at the deep dive on the report, the Brazilian demand between their domestic demand and their export demand is actually more than what they're projected to grow. So there is not any room for a weather error to happen in Brazil. So we do need to keep an eye on weather there. And of course, the time to weather watch for South America for corn, for that second crop corn in Brazil, is late March to early April.
It was kind of frustrating this morning to see that we had a flash sale of corn. We had a flash sale of sorghum, a big one at that, and that didn't even move the market.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating. Definitely welcome news for both corn and sorghum. One of the biggest sorghum sales in nearly a decade, I think, for a flash sale, both to unknown destinations. Presumably China in this instance, especially for the sorghum, is that they just do traditionally take a lot of that sorghum product. But the market just not able to rally through that just because, again, the perception of corn carryout at 2.2 billion bushels is just enough to keep this market from rallying with any gusto.
Naomi, we have had quite a few unknown destination sales of corn. Is it at all possible that could be China?
Well, I think it is possible because they are supposed to be importing corn this year. But now remember, what's different than past years is that China used to buy their corn from us and from Ukraine. But ever since the Russian and Ukraine war, China has now sprawled out their web of who they purchase corn from. So it is us in Ukraine, but also Brazil, Argentina, and South Africa. But definitely welcomed if they are purchasing product. They are expected to have to import some corn every year, and we're happy to send it on over to them.
And wheat futures tried to put in a little weather premium, but right now we're just kind of stuck, aren't we?
Yeah, it'll be similar to what corn has got going on for it. Some range trade there for the wheat market. Wheat supply is viewed as sufficient, not a lot of production hiccups in the world. And the wheat market, I think later this week, will take a cue on export sales for Thursday morning. That might be our driver for prices as the week goes on. But otherwise, I'm looking for March Chicago wheat to probably trade in about a 25-cent range. $5 is fantastic support for March Chicago wheat futures, but that market going to have a real hard time getting through the 530 area.
And what about cattle? A little setback, but we haven't been able to get above the next area of chart resistance. So are we waiting for cash, the report at the end of the week, or what?
Yeah, I do think that that's what's going on. So, of course, the cattle on feed report last Friday, not a lot of big fresh news on it. And so now the trade is waiting for the cattle inventory that is going to be this upcoming Friday. And that's got a lot of detailed information on it that traders are going to look for. They're going to try to see if any heifers are being retained for breeding and try to give us any kind of sense if the herd is going to slowly be rebuilding, if and when. So that's going to take center stage this week, along with looking for cash trade, especially after this winter storm. We have had slow cash sales just because it's hard to get your cattle to market as you're still battling snow and ice and cold temperatures. So cash trade going to be the theme for this week for price direction and the report on Friday at 2:00.
So if you get a bullish report and you get steady, maybe even higher cash trade, can you finally get above this next area of resistance that we just hit our head on this week?
Yeah, I think that would do it. I would think that the specific numbers on the cattle inventory report, if they come out to be friendly, then that would be a reason for the market to be able to work higher. Because at that point, the only thing that could maybe bring it down for pricing would be if the border were to reopen, but there doesn't seem to be any signs of that anytime soon. So this Friday's report is going to be a very, very big catalyst for price direction next week.
Good point. Class 3 milk futures down just a little bit today, but we had a limit up move yesterday. What is going on in that market?
Yeah, that's a market that's priced in all of the negativity. So last Friday, we had a pretty bearish milk production report where milk production was up 4% again. So we have, it seems like, just digested all of this bearish news. And what we saw on late Friday and even on Monday was we saw butter prices start to get a little bit stronger. We saw stronger demand for cash cheese prices. And so that was enough to lift the class 3 milk futures higher. We saw funds cover short positions. We saw technical buying, and that left the market limit up on Monday. It was very exciting to see something with some positive traction for prices. So that was great for Monday's market, a little bit of follow through early Tuesday morning and then a pullback into the close. But overall, it looks like maybe that milk market has finally bottomed and the theme is on good demand.
Gotcha. Do you think there's much more upside from here?
Well, it's going to be a tricky balance where we know that this production is a big amount. We are still seeing that consistently. So that's going to be hard for the market to have a substantial rally from here. But again, demand for dairy products has been really strong. So it feels like we have some good support here brewing. Maybe a little bit of more back and fill price action as the week goes on, but it feels like the market has maybe put in a pretty good low.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much. That is Naomi Blohm with Total Farm Marketing and Markets Now.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack Trait Technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force. Outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.